Hi, I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies, and today PSE was sold. And in this video I don't want to talk about PSE being sold, but I want to talk about me visiting PSE and having dinner with the Shepleys. And I want to talk about the whole experience and what it was like for me, and how I found the PSE factory and the Shepleys. So the first thing is I travelled to PSE, obviously from Australia, just to sort of meet the factory and just sort of see how things are done. That was the reason why I went to PSE, see how my orders are processed and have a better understanding about how I go from ordering a product to how it's delivered on my shelves. So that's why I visited PSE. This was a number of years ago. So you're going to say, how many years ago was it? I'm going to say at least 10 years ago. But in the process, I went to go out with lunch with Pete Shepley, and I also went to his house for dinner, where his wife cooked. So I want to talk about that. So I suppose I'll start off with, I first off rocked up to the factory. I drove from Arizona. So it was a fairly long drive, and I was a bit, I'm going to say a bit out of it when I got there. Because at the time, Jonathan, which is Pete's son, was the CEO. So I was like, well, Pete's kind of retired and Jonathan's now in charge. And when I get there to the factory, I rock up, it's a big car park and big building. It's an old IBM building, a massive factory. So I rock up and I don't really know what to expect. And I rock up and Pete's in the front entrance where I get greeted, and I call him Jonathan. So it was just a mental blank, and I called him Jonathan instead of Pete, because I was thinking, well, Pete's not going to be here, Jonathan's now the CEO. And anyway, so that was okay. So I got a tour of the factory, I got to meet people and taken around and shown how things worked. And I got taken to Pete's office. Now, Pete's office, I'm going to just describe it a bit. It's a fairly big office and it's fairly dated. I'm going to say the factory is fairly dated. And that's not to say anything about the machines, because the machines are all state-of-the-art technology, but it's a dated building. It was obviously built in the 1970s, obviously housed IBM, and all the money, I'm going to say, has gone into the machines to make the bows and to make the parts for the bows, and you were sort of taken through all that when you were taken around the plant. So we go into Pete's office and there are bows everywhere, and I'm talking on the floor, on the desk, bows everywhere. And they're all his old bows, so it's bows he's had for literally years and years, all different setups, target setups, hunting setups, drop away rests, whisker biscuits, stuff he's tried over the years, all over the office. And it was quite interesting to sort of take it all in. But we went out for lunch. And in the process of going out for lunch, I'm going to say everyone drives big trucks in Tucson, Arizona. So everyone's got big trucks. In Australia, we generally have smaller cars, but everyone had big trucks, and we went out for Mexican. And in the process, Pete's talking about archery and how you can promote archery and things PSE have done to make archery grow. And Pete spoke about sponsoring archers and their return on investment. So if you sponsor someone, you know what you can expect back as far as sales. And if you pay someone, then you know how much do you get back in sales and how much do they grow the business for you. So we had all those kind of conversations and how many bows he gives away. And now off the top of my head, just rough numbers, I think Pete said he gave away 300 compound bows in a year. And his view was that it was a complete waste of money, as far as most of those bows given away do not generate sales. So that was his view, and it's very rare that you have a staff shooter who will generate for you 10 bow sales. So for every bow you give away, you need 10 bows to be sold from that one sale. So if you, and I'm not talking this staff shooters where you pay them, I'm just talking you give them a bow. Now his view, Pete's view, was that often the shops are the best place to give bows to, because if you give a bow to a shop, they will then promote your product, and if you can get the owners of shops to shoot your brand, then that will be more successful than a staff shooter. So Pete's view was at lunch that the company gave away too many bows, and he wanted to rein that back. But there was a view in the company that you've got to give away all these bows to create sales, and it was very hard to rein that back. So anyway, that was the conversation, and he spoke about what he's done to promote archery and where he's given away money and shoots he's sponsored and whether that grows the sport. And we discussed how I viewed that we can grow the sport of archery. So there was a big conversation like that over a Mexican lunch. And it was very good lunch. It was very quiet. But that was my experience. Then after that, we went back to the factory and Pete said, "Do you want to come to our house for dinner?" So that was like kind of unexpected. So anyway, so I get picked up for dinner. So we drove on this freeway. I don't know Tucson. So we drove on this freeway out to Pete's farm. And when I say it's a farm, Tucson's like a desert. Lots of cactuses. And Pete's got a big house. Big house with holiday, I'm going to say spare holiday guest houses on it. I think it had like a runway for a plane. But a big house, sandstone looking house. And it was big. Anyway, so I walked in the front door, and it's high, like it's 2-story when you walk in the front door. It's very grand, and taxidermy all over the front, and very tasteful and very artistic, his displays. We then walked into the dining room, which is a big wooden table, and he's got lots of mounts up on the walls, and Pete's wife is cooking dinner. They've got a big kitchen and she's making the dinner, so which is great, and she's a lovely lady. So she was cooking dinner for us. Very good cook, and we kind of got to just speak about stuff. And what struck me was like the family influence in PSE. So obviously the son was president of PSE at the time. The other son was head chef at PSE, in charge of the kitchen, and his daughter was a hairdresser, and she was actually at the factory when I was there just visiting. So I'm not sure how many other children Pete had, but the 3 children were there on the day I got there. So now the Shepleys spoke about putting on Christmas for all the staff. So PSE employed about 250 people, and she spoke about making large pots of like stews for Christmas, and they spoke about why they don't do it now, which was very interesting. She said because if something happens, then the company would be sued. So basically back in time, the Shepleys would put on a big Christmas for all their staff, but then I don't think they do it anymore because of the chances of something happening and them being sued. So it was this whole legal stuff versus then got discussed. But what struck me, so they're obviously, quite a wealthy family, but his wife, she shoots a 70-pound bow, and she spoke about shooting in Vegas, and she rocks up to Vegas, she said, and she pulled back her bow and the arrow kept falling off the rest, and she's at full draw anyway. Someone's behind her and said, "Your bow's upside down." I'm not sure how she drew back her bow upside down, but she obviously then twisted the bow around the right way and she was in business. But she said her nerves were so much that she didn't even know which way up her bow was, which is kind of interesting. And what struck me about Mrs. Shepley, well, she had like just denim jeans, normal runners, just a normal person. And she spoke about cleaning out her horse stables herself. She does her cooking herself. She does her cleaning herself. And she spoke about their dog. So they've got this dog, and it's just a normal dog. So they're driving along this road, and this dog abandoned on the side of the road, right? And it's got broken legs and things. So she picks up this dog, or they pick up the dog, and they take it to a vet, get the dog fixed up, and now this is the family dog. And they spoke about the importance of family and the fact that they employ 250 people, and that's their family. And most of the people in the PSE factory have been working there for 20 odd years, and that was important to them. So from my perspective in Australia, a lot of people see people who own companies and think rich bastards. They're just ripping everyone off. They're not paying enough wages. That's everyone should get more money. Now, from my perspective, the Shepleys were not like that. They were like, this is a family. We create work for these people, and we have a business in America, in Tucson, to employ people because we're part of the community. Now, Pete spoke about, moving stuff to China. He said, look, we used to make quivers in America, in the factory. We had sewing machines to make quivers. But then you can't compete against China. So he said we stopped doing that because we're just not profitable. He spoke about sights. PSE used to make sights in the factory. And he said it became not profitable to do so, as much as he'd want to make sights in America. It wasn't profitable because in China you can buy them for $3 or $4 each. And he can't make them for that in America. So some products have to move to China from America. But Pete was very passionate about making stuff in America where possible. And he said he had offers to move the factory to other states, and the people would give tax breaks to do that, but he wouldn't do that because he wanted to keep the staff who've been in Tucson there. He said that's why we're here. He said he was given tax breaks to move, to employ people in other states, and he never did so because he wanted to keep the business in Tucson. And it was driven into me so much that the owner is there, that first off, they loved the sport of archery. That was just driven into me. And he'd been there forever. As a kid growing up, he's an engineer, and he built bows and wanted to build better bows, and started off small and then grew and grew and grew. And all the money that he makes, or the money he makes, gets poured into the factory to buy machines and make a better mousetrap, basically. Now, he spoke about wages, and we have this debate all the time because in Australia we just had an 8% base wage rise, and they're talking about having another wage rise of 5 to 8%. And the debate goes on from the left to the right that yes, we should pay more wages, and the right say no because it's going to send businesses broke. Now, the problem that Pete discussed is, look, it's all very well to pay more wages, but as soon as you do that, it's cheaper to make the product in China because the cost of wages in China is so cheap and materials are so cheap in China that then the product becomes unprofitable in America, and you just can't make it. So basically you're putting people out of a job by increasing the wages. Now, I'm just, that debate's going to go on forever, whether you should pay more wages. But at the end of the day, you've got to be profitable, so you've got to make a product for a set price. And the quality and all that sort of stuff. So, PSE, when I was there, they make a lot of risers and they have a lot of scrap. They were the number one producer of scrap aluminium in, I'm going to say Arizona or Tucson, but they produced literally skips of aluminium from making cams and making risers, just so much machining. But anyway, the whole what I took from the dinner with the Shepleys is they're very humble, very down to earth, family business. They weren't, a lot of people who've got money you kind of think are on a different level. These people are very down to earth. And they were all about trying to make a product in America at an affordable price and consumers buy it, so you can basically employ people in America. And Pete was all about how much money is spent on advertising and how you grow the business to create more market share. So that was driven into me, and it's always been with me for a long time, and I'm very thankful to have those conversations and those meetings with someone like Pete. I'm very thankful for his wife and to be invited into the family. So because it's a big eye-opener for me. We have a family business, so it's very interesting to hear another person's view on a business and growing a business and how you grow a business and how profitable a business is. So saying that, PSE has just been sold, and I'll do a video on that. But very thankful to have the experience with Pete. And I'm going to say, from a family perspective, we used to deal with Martin Archery, and we used to deal with Gail Martin. Dealing with the Shepleys and PSE, it was like a big family. And the staff were all like a big family. Like when I was being shown through the factory, people knew who I was. Because every time a bow is produced, it has the name of who the bow's for on it. It has a slip, it has all the parts needed to make that bow, and it has who's it for. And coming down the shipping line, there's a conveyor belt of all the bows that need to be made with the name of the person who's the bow for. And when you look at those, it's like almost 1 in 10 bows was for me coming down that shipping line. And I was like, and people knew me. I had my own packer at PSE who would pack orders for me, for 3 people. I think it was me, Cabela's, and I think it was a guy in Canada. So I think it was 3 people. And maybe he did Europe as well, but I think it was 3. So he clearly knew who I was and was very happy to meet me, because he's like, well, I do most of my work for you, and I'd probably take up his time for 1 day in a week. And he got to sort of meet me, and I got to meet him. And it's a valuable experience to meet the people and see how things are done. But just to see a whole manufacturing plant, how the bows are built, the process they go through, the research and technology which they put into it, the designs, because we got taken through all that they try, the testing areas where they try new products, the areas where they sit there and test the bows to simulate 20 years of shooting. It was all amazing for me. But overall, the big thing I'm going to take from it was this whole commitment about building products in America, being productive and employing people in America, and having a family of employees. It was a very strong message, and it's not the message that I hear from the left. I'm not being in politics, but what I hear from the left is all these people who own companies are making millions and they're ripping off the workers. That has never been my experience of anyone I know who owns a business. They're generally hardworking, and they generally all the money's going back to the company to keep the company profitable. Anyway, I'm Stephen Hand. Thanks for watching, and we'll do a video on the sale of PSE.